Hi, I'm Tuxfu. Welcome to my series on taking back control of your computing, your freedom and privacy on the internet and in computing in general. So today we'll be taking a look at smartphones. Now, what are smartphones really? They're portable computers which you can make phone calls from. And these days, these devices often come pre-installed with bloatware and spyware. But luckily, there are alternatives available. Now, we can get alternative operating systems on some models of Android, such as Postmarket OS, Ubuntu Touch, LineageOS, and I think even KDE are working on a mobile OS. It's a version of Plasma, I think. And there are some Linux phones which will be coming out this year. There's the PinePhone by Pine64, and there's the Librem 5 from Purisms. You can't get your hands on these at the moment, but they're early development, early adopter sort of builds. So you might want to wait for the consumer version if you're not a tinkerer or developer. So first, we'll talk a bit about the PinePhone and the Librem 5, and then we'll talk a bit about LineageOS and Ubuntu Touch, because I've tried both of them, and I'll do a sort of a review of them. So let's talk a little bit about the PinePhone. So the PinePhone is from Pine64, and it aims to be a completely open source smartphone from the software to the hardware. So there'll be many distributions of Linux designed for it, such as Ubuntu Touch, Sailfish OS, Postmarket OS, the KDE OS, and a couple more. So it comes with pretty decent specs for a affordable smartphone, because it aims to be affordable. Comes with a quad-core processor, 2 gigabytes of RAM. The main camera is 5 megapixel. The selfie camera is 2 megapixels. So it comes with a pretty decent camera for the price of this, which is going to be around $150 US. And it comes with hardware kill switches as well. So we go here. You can see at the moment you can get the Braveheart edition, which is more of a version for tinkerers and developers. This is not the consumer version. Now let's have a look inside. Now as you see here, in this little bit here, that's where the hardware kill switches are. So that means you can switch off the Wi-Fi, switch off the 4G modem, you can switch off the cameras, the microphones, and all sorts of things just by flicking these switches. And that way no malicious software will be able to access the hardware. So, and then here's the SIM card slot and SD card slot. So you'd put in the SIM card first, and then I think the SD card goes on top of it. Could be the other way around, I'm not sure. And these pins here, this is interesting. You can swap the back cover, and you can add peripherals to the phone. So for example, a keyboard which you can slide out. You could change the back cover, put a back cover on it that has a keyboard, and slide it out, and the back cover touches these pins. So it's kind of like the I/O pins on the Raspberry Pi, or the Pine board. Pine64 also make a single board computer, which is kind of like the Raspberry Pi, but probably slightly higher specs actually. So I'm probably going to get one of these once the consumer version comes out, because I want a nice quality phone if I'm going to spend some money on it, because this one's more in my price range than the Librem 5, which we'll talk about next. Okay, the Librem 5 is an open source phone by Purism. This is a high quality phone, by the way, and for $800 it bloody well should be. But that's not the only thing that goes into the price. A lot of research and development went into developing this phone, which comes with Pure OS. But of course, you'll be able to install other distributions of Linux on it designed for smartphones. such as Ubuntu Touch if you want to. So the goal here from Purism is to be completely transparent and give the user control, freedom, security, and privacy. And let's just scroll down to the specs. You can check out this page for yourself. I don't plan on getting one of these. As I mentioned earlier, this phone's way out of my price range. I would really like one though. So it has a quad-core processor, 3 gigabytes. So this is has way better specs than the PinePhone. I mean, it has a 13 megapixel main camera. So wow, that's a real nice camera. 3,500 milliamp hour battery. Nice. It has 32 gigabytes of internal storage, and it has a external micro SD card slot, which is compatible with a 2 terabyte SD card. Holy crap, that's so cool. It's a pretty decent GPU too. So yeah, I would really like one of these. It's nearly $800 and the consumer version could be more than that. So I think that if you buy it from here now, this will be a early adopter build and you go on a waiting list. So the consumer version of both the PinePhone and the Librem 5 should hopefully be out later this year. Now if you want to know more about this phone, the Linux Gamer, he's also here on Library and he's on YouTube too. He talks a lot about this phone, and I think he has one already. So if you want to know more about it, check out his channel and look for videos on the Librem 5. Now these Linux phones aim to be as open source as possible, but there are some proprietary blobs, 2 of them, which cannot be avoided, and that's with the Wi-Fi/Bluetooth module and the cell modem. And Pine64 put a toot about this recently, and they linked an article which someone wrote who has deep knowledge of it, and I'll put a link to this article in the description if you'd like to know more about it and why it cannot be avoided. One of the major problems with these phones from these major OEMs is planned obsolescence. That is, they actually intentionally plan to make your phone obsolete. And this is something that these Linux phones plan to solve. So they both have hardware kill switches. They both plan to have some modularity, replaceable batteries, and to be repairable. So I think that's awesome, because there's actually some of these older phones that have come out in the past few years still good if you could only just easily swap out the battery. They're still very powerful and will do the job, but they stop putting out security updates for them, and that you can't easily swap the battery and all sorts of nonsense, and there's no good reason for it. They just want you to buy a new phone, which is a waste, really. LineageOS is an open source operating system based on Android, but it's without all the Google services, bloatware and spyware that OEMs often ship on their phone. I've been using LineageOS ever since the CryanogenMod mod days, so I've been using it for quite a while. CryanogenMod mod is what LineageOS was forked from when CryanogenMod mod got shut down. And I was running CryanogenMod mod on my Nexus 1, and you know, that was a perfectly fine phone. I might have even still been using it, but I had the bright idea of storing that phone in my front pocket, and then this happened to me.
Not before I flushed the toilet, thank you very much.
Now, LineageOS has some of its own unique features, such as Privacy Guard, but where LineageOS really shines is when you combine LineageOS with F-Droid. Now, you can download F-Droid from the F-Droid website. Now, what F-Droid is it's a like a package manager for Android. So if you've ever used Linux and used a package manager such as the Software Center or Deb, Yum, or Pacman, that's essentially what F-Droid is. Now it's got a nice little GUI so you can go in there and search for applications. All applications in the default F-Droid repositories are all open source. They're compiled by the F-Droid team from source, and they're audited so that they make sure that they're secure, and they list anti-features, and all the applications on there are of high quality. They're really good. And of course, there are lots of other F-Droid repositories that you can add to F-Droid, and there are also lots of open source apps for Android which aren't on any of the repos, but they're available on the developer's website or on their GitHub page. An example of this is the Library app. You can download the Library app from the GitHub. Jellyfin's another example. If you want the Jellyfin app on your Android, you can download the APK from the GitHub. And yeah, Signal's another example. You can download the Signal APK from this Signal website. So a lot of open source apps are available to download as APKs from the developer's website if they're not on the F-Droid repo. But generally speaking, the F-Droid repo will give you all the apps you need. Now, in the rare case you might need some proprietary app from Google Play, you can use the Aurora store, which you can download from F-Droid, and that will create you a throwaway Google account that, so that you don't need to have a Google account, and then it'll download the APK from Google Play for you, and then that way you can install whatever app you need, in case there's an app you have to have for work or something like that. Or maybe it's the app for your local public transportation or something that you want to have. So yeah, F-Droid is a must. Now sometimes if your phone's supported, LineageOS actually has a later version of Android than your stock OS on your phone. And also it's sometimes supported for way longer than your OEM supports your phone, so that's pretty cool. So to install LineageOS, I recommend checking out the wiki page, not the download page. The wiki page lists all the devices that LineageOS is available for, while the download page only lists phones that are currently still maintained. Don't be disheartened if your phone's not still maintained. The LineageOS ROM is probably more up to date than your stock OS, unless your phone's very new. To install LineageOS, you'll need ADB tools on your computer. You'll need to enable USB debugging and developer mode, unlock your bootloader, install a custom recovery, and then you can install LineageOS. Now, the difficulty of doing these things will depend on your model of phone, and the process of doing so is different for every model of phone, so you'll need to check out the LineageOS wiki to see how to get it working on your phone. The thing to be aware of is when you put a custom image on your phone, you will void your warranty. But I'm a person who cannot tolerate the nonsense that OEMs put on their phones, so I say, who gives a crap about the warranty? I want to get that bloatware and spyware off my phone. Ubuntu Touch is a version of Ubuntu you can run on mobile devices. It was maintained and developed by Canonical, but they stopped working on it, and then the community took over and founded UBports, who are currently still actively developing on it. Installing Ubuntu Touch is actually really easy. It's easier than LineageOS. So you just have to enable developer mode, USB debugging, and then run the UBports installer, and that will set up and run Ubuntu Touch on your phone. Ubuntu Touch uses a modified Unity desktop and Mir as its display server. I tried using Ubuntu Touch as my daily driver for a week, and I really liked it, but the problem I ran into was the lack of good quality and secure applications for it. Now, I love Nextcloud. I was able to sync my Nextcloud calendar on here just by using the built-in settings, but I could not do so with my contacts. Now, to sync my contacts, I had to enable SSH on here and SSH in and run a script to sync my contacts from my Nextcloud, which is kind of a pain. And to access the other Nextcloud features, I had to use web apps, which suck because web apps suck at being offline. And I don't use mobile data. I want to sync everything to my phone while I'm at home so I can access it while I'm out and about and not need to use mobile data. Ubuntu Touch has a really cool feature called convergence, which lets you plug your phone into an external display and use it as a full desktop. Now for this you'll need a slim port to HDMI adapter and a Bluetooth keyboard. Now I got a Bluetooth keyboard with a built-in touchpad so that I didn't need to get both a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse. Now this feature is still experimental. I was able to run Ubuntu Touch apps just fine in convergence. They were very fast. But when I tried using Librem, the built-in container management for running full desktop applications, I ran into issues. Sometimes the programs wouldn't launch at all, and the ones that would launch, such as Firefox, ran incredibly slow. Now I know Firefox takes a lot of resources to run, but I also tried other simpler applications and they also ran incredibly slow. And the audio, when you use convergence, still comes out of the phone. It's not getting sent via the HDMI, but I'm sure that's something that they're aware of and they're planning to fix if it's at all possible. Ubuntu Touch is a fine operating system. The problem is the applications for it are not very good. Now, F-Droid is evidence that there are lots of great developers developing high-quality applications for mobile. How can we get some of them to work on Ubuntu Touch? We need to make it possible for them to use this as their daily driver so that they're using it daily and start developing applications for it. So I think the core apps need to be expanded to make this possible. So for a start, full Nextcloud support. That includes all the Nextcloud applications: contacts, calendars, RSS feeds, notes, file syncing, and the other Nextcloud applications such as passwords and stuff as well. Just full Nextcloud support would be enough to make it possible to use this as a daily driver. I think it would also be a good idea to use snap or app images instead of the click packages that you currently have to use for packaging Ubuntu Touch apps. So another benefit of using snap and app images is you could also use those for desktop applications. People won't have to make a special build just for Ubuntu Touch. You can just download the snap or app image for the ARM build of that application and run it on your phone to get the convergence mode, and then those applications should run fine. You won't need Librem anymore. But that was just some general feedback for the UbiPorts team if they're watching this video. Okay, so I think it's time to wrap things up. So for the moment, I think the best option if you want to liberate your phone is still LineageOS. But these Linux phones are coming along nicely. Hopefully PureOS will be available for other models of phone other than the Librem 5. And hopefully Ubuntu Touch will continue to develop nicely as well. I'll probably eventually get a PinePhone and try out various Linux operating systems on those. Anyways, are you looking forward to the future of Linux phones? Let me know down in the comments. I am. I'm excited for the day I can get rid of Android and replace LineageOS with a full Linux phone. That'll be fun. So anyways, thank you all very much. See you later.